Hi everyone, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate it, thank you. So by retribution here I mean accountability, payback, things coming to a head in a problematic way, including all the way to a disastrous way. And once again, I'll repeat that it assumes that he even makes it to facing it in such ways. First, he has to navigate through the last Pisces period of Saturn, which spans from September, meaning now, all the way into early February, which is connected to his health in a major way, which could, of course, prove, as a result, totally disastrous. However, beyond that, if the person is there to deal with it, we have the Saturn in Aries the rest of 2026 from February onward, all of 27, and the first part of 28. What I've noticed in this guy's chart is that he doesn't like it when planets are going through cardinal signs, and to my understanding it's because of that Access Hollywood T-square of his, Mercury at the top, Neptune opposite Eris, plus the Venus-Saturn in the 12th. And remember that you're involving Saturn itself in the 12th, which can be an incredibly compromising position given the downside of that house, which he plays to on a constant basis. Conjunct Venus, Venus rules his 10th, which is his career, his place in the world. And so those patterns really emerge, not in a good way. And we can see the evidence in the past. Most recently, he was elected in 2016, and it was 2018 when Saturn went into Capricorn, which is another cardinal sign. This is where Saturn was last in cardinal before now going into Aries. So in 18, it starts the downtrend. The election is lost. Midterms of 18, at 19, he had a few good moments, but things really started to downtrend in the second half with the impeachment, and then you go into 20, you get COVID. Point is, it ends in pretty much total disaster because he mismanages COVID completely, and then he loses the election. Saturn by then late in Capricorn, and you can go back another few years to the late 09, 10, and 11. That's when he was moving into politics, but he wanted to be a part of the 2012 election, and he couldn't get any traction. Now, of course, we can also say simultaneously that that's where he launched his political career by doing the birtherism on Obama. He became more known politically. That's another side of Saturn, which is that it does, through work, move you forward in a certain direction, but you're making karma. You're creating a pattern that will come back potentially to haunt you later. Then he faces some of the blowback to that during the Capricorn period. Now he's in the Aries period. And the same thing is happening again, which is that the entry period is an immutable sign, Pisces, meaning he gets elected, gets sworn in. Most of 2025 is Pisces Saturn. 2026 is Aries, 27 is Aries. And so the problems get magnified, they increase, and you start to get karmic retribution, karmic payback. And as a result, things don't go well and they don't end well. Now there's something else, or another technique that is a bit of a novel approach to this, but I've looked at quite a few charts and I'm pretty convinced that it's valid and is really interesting and reflective of something that is happening to a person in his or her connection to the country they live in, because the country you live in has a chart. And so just as you can coalesce your chart with any other person and create what is known as a composite chart, which is a very interesting and powerful tool in reflecting the relationship as well as when planets are transiting to that chart. So when we do that for Trump, I mean, we blend it with the US chart. This is not the idea of putting the US planets next to his chart or his planets next to the US chart. That's a different way of looking at it. That's called synastry, how two people or two anything affect each other. And that's where, for example, the American chart has Saturn in Libra, which conjoins Trump's Jupiter in Libra, etc. Here, it's a composite. You create a third chart, which is the midpoint of his planets to the American planets. Then you get this chart with all these planets in the 10th sign in Cancer, Moon in Capricorn at the bottom of the chart, and you also get Libra rising. So what's interesting about that is that if you look at his trajectory in the political realm, he was doing reasonably well. I mean, thing with this guy, when you say he's doing well, he's in a constantly chaotic situation because he is immediately disliked. As soon as all the citizens are watching, he gets into the 40s, even into the late 30s. He's just not a likable person. In fact, he's quite odious. And so aside from his ardent, strident supporters, the majority of the country doesn't like him. And so immediately he starts to be rejected. And it's because of what he's doing, too. It's not just because people don't like the way he looks or anything, although that's a separate topic. But certainly his actions lead to this perception. But then, going back to the composite, Saturn, when it entered Capricorn, things began to downtrend and they got worse and worse as they moved toward that moon, opposing all those planets. That's the 18, 19, 20 period that ended for him in disaster. People are always saying, this guy gets away with everything. Yes, he does in one sense, but not in another, meaning you would say maybe 18, 19, not as much, but certainly 20. By then he's on his back foot and things don't end well, and he's having to fight his way back, 21, 22, 23, and half of 24. He's in the wilderness during those years. Even if, yes, he's part of the political dialogue and he's a constant problem for all of us, but it's not like it's smooth sailing all the time. And the same thing is happening now, because now Saturn in Aries is doing its thing to his chart. I covered that. Now it's squaring all those Cancer planets and squaring the moon. And we'll see a similar pattern where 26 really amps up and becomes more difficult, including the fact that it encompasses the 26 midterms, because 26 will mean Saturn gets all the way to the middle of Aries, which already covers its own chart, the Access Hollywood T, perfectly, and planets in this chart as well. And then as we go into 27, just gets deeper into Aries and squares those Cancer planets and squares the moon. And separately, if you look at the composite, it is strikingly symbolic, because having all that Cancer up above like that, first of all, that's one of his claims to fame as the real estate mogul. He's played with real estate a whole lot in his life. That's Cancer, the sign of real estate. But also, Cancer is a kind of a nativism sign. If you think about it being the natural fourth in the zodiac, it's the house of the home. So therefore, themes of the homeland. I mean, it's Cancer, Capricorn. Capricorn would be more the fatherland, and Cancer is the motherland. But nevertheless, the idea of nativism, of this whole thing of, America first, only us. We don't want any foreigners here. Everything is for the home and for all of that, is the Cancer energy, and it's really, really striking in his chart. Though I'm not covering it here, an interesting contrast would be when you look at the chart for Bill Clinton with the US. There you get a whole lot of Leo planets up above in the 10th sign, but I'll leave that for a future video.